Alright, just like with the previous lesson, on some of the problems you may get a graph. Alright, instead of a table or chart, they may give you a graph and then be like, alright, okay, answer some questions just based off this graph alone. Okay, this particular graph is a line graph simply because it's a line. Alright, it's not a straight line, but it's essentially a line over across a set of numbers. Alright, and the actual definition of the line graph is it uses one or more lines to show how one quantity, in this case, years, all right, varies in relation to another, in which, in this case, cost. So, cost of living over years. All right. So, this graph, or this line graph, is the cost of living for a family of four, all right, estimated per week over 35 years. Okay. So looking at 1965, it starts at around an estimate $100, and 2000s is about $425. So it's steadily increased all the way up. All right. So what we're going to do is using this graph, we are going to answer some questions. Example 1. What was the cost of living for 1 week for a family of four in 1980? All right. So what we got to do is just look at 1980 and figure out what the cost of living was. So we're going to look at 1980, which is right there, and then cross the line, which is $200. All right. So we've got so what we did is we found 1980 on the x-axis. All right. This is the x-axis. All right. Anything going left or right is x-axis. Anything going up or down is the y-axis. Okay. So x, y. Most of the time will always be down on the x-axis. All right, because time is independent from anything. Okay, so what we've done is we looked at 1980, found it on the x-axis. We followed the vertical line up to where it intersects the red line, or in this case, the black line. All right. Followed it up, black dot. All right. And then from that intersection, we followed the horizontal line left to the y-axis, which put it at $200. And then we just got to read the number, which is $200. So the cost of living for 1 week for a family of four in 1980 was $200. Okay. Let's look at example 2. During which 5-year period did the cost of living increase the most? Okay. Now this one's a little bit more tricky. Essentially what we've got to do is find and estimate the cost of living amount for each year represented on the x-axis. All right. So we've got to look at 1965, 1970, 1975, 1980, 1985, 1990, 1995, and 2000. All right. And then we've got to subtract each year's cost of living from the cost during the following 5-year period. For example, from 1965 to 1970, from here to here, all right, we've got to subtract the cost of living. So we've got to do 1970 is around 125, 1965 is 100, so we got to do 125 minus 100, which is $25. All right. So we've got to look at each jump all the way up. Yes, this is going to take a while just because of how much there is. All right. Sometimes that happens. Okay. So we've got to take a look at. I'm going to shorten this. I'm just going to do 65 to 70. So 65 to 70. 70 to 75. 75 to 80. 80 to 85. What did I say? 80, 85? 85 to 90. 90 to 95. 95 to 2000. I'm just going to put 00. So what we've got to do is look at each of these 7 sets of numbers, figure out the difference, and then choose the greatest number out of all these. All right. So from 65 to 70, we discovered is $25. Okay. From 70 to 75, 75 is about 175. 1970 was at 125. That was about 50. It says 45, so 45 to 50. Remember, we're guessing. All right, so let's take a look at 75 to 80. 75, about 145, 150. 1980 is 200. Okay. So, oh, I lied. That's about 165, 175, 170. About 170. All right. So that's a $30. 80 to 85. Whoop. So from 80 was 200. 85 was 250. That one's easy. That's 50. Now we're going to do 85 to 90. So 85 was 200. 1990 is about 325. So that's a $75 difference. 90 to 95. So 325 to 475. 375. So 325 to 375. That's what about 45 to 50. And last one is 95 to 200. 95 is about 365, 375, 2,000. It's about 425. It's about 50 to 55. All right. So now what we've got to do is we've got to figure out, okay, out of these 7, which one's the biggest? All right. And looking at these 7, 1985 to 1990 was a $75 difference, which is the greatest increase from our line graph. All right. So what I want you to do is work on the practice problems. Okay. Answer the questions, then compare your solution with what they have on the paper, and then work on the last 2 pages. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask.